Good evening, guys, from the Hobby Barn basement. Part 3 of the F-14 from Freewing modification set. I finished building this aircraft with the modifications from RC Informer and from Dustin, and put the plates in, put the modifications in for the main retracts, put the plate in for the front. Everything worked. It was a great fit. It was a fairly straightforward set of things to do, but I promised a part 3. So I went out to battle test the system. I wanted to see how well it was going to hold up on my short field grass that's rough, because I'm always looking for a better way. And what I found, first of all, was on the front nose gear. The modification itself worked very well, except for on the strut that comes with the F-14. You will notice it's 2 pieces. You can see right there that the link on it is screwed in at the back. These are a beautiful piece of engineering. That's a shortcoming. And when you have that harder landing with that new plate involved, it can stretch or break the aluminum in the back. You can't fix it. So the fix for that actually is replacing it with a newer version strut from the Freewing F-18 90. I just happen to have an extra one from another project. They are a drop-in fit. Identical in every way, except you had to swap the wheels over. But if you look, the strut is 1 piece. The aluminum is all machined in 1 piece. It was a perfect fit. I literally had to do nothing except tape the pins out of the gear, swap them over. That was it. Simple mod, inexpensive, and to date, since then, 0 issues. Hard landings and all. Like I said, I battle test these things to see what's going to happen to them. So moving on to the main gear. Now, the main gear themselves, I found that with the initial mods, they worked fine. But what was happening after a couple of really significant hard landings, which the struts held up okay, the plates held up great, the other mods held up great, but what you'll find is they bust the retracts. And these retract units are not intended for a 13.5-pound model. These are intended for a 7-pound model, perhaps, maybe a 9-pound model. These would be better suited for the A6, an Avanti, something that's half the size and weight of the F-14. And being that they're not aluminum, you can see the result. I went through 2 sets of these because I wanted to ensure, as ridiculous as that sounds, that this was actually a problem and not just a fluke. But a few hard landings, everything survived, the struts survived, the retracts did not. They just disintegrate. Surprising. So the answer to that was I went to an Eflite size retract, the 90s. They are identical in size. They are a drop-in fit, and they are aluminum. There ain't no breaking these, folks. I literally had to do one little tiny modification right here around the edge of the gear mount. I just made it a little bit wider because it's the way the aluminum is. It's about 1/10 of a millimeter wider. The inside didn't matter. It was on the outside. It was just I had to round that corner a little so it would sit down in. Also, when these sit down, when you take the retracts out, there may be a plastic piece either under here, or maybe in both places. What they're for, those shims are to set the correct angle for the retract so that when it retracts in, it actually fits and it doesn't rub against your intake. So pay attention to that when you seat these. I had to put an 1/8 piece of ply under here as a shim. That set it, no problem. On the other side, I didn't have to do anything. It dropped right in. I screwed it down. Done. The third thing you'll notice is I've got a fairly beefy strut that I replaced the factory ones with. I wanted something that was really going to hold up under tough landings. And if you recognize those, I did a T28 mod a while back. And those are the Eflite 6120 shocks from the F4U. Or you can just get the 6120s. The standard size are exactly the correct length. They look fantastic, as you can see. I used the stock wheels. The axles weren't an exact fit, but they were close enough. I replaced the axle grub screw with this. I think it was a 3mm flat screw. Same thing. It fit right down in. Locked the axle in. Perfect. And finally, after that, and I tested it, these have been battle tested. You can come down on these things as hard as you want, and all they do is compress. That's it. No bounce. The gear absorb it. No more broken landing gear. Problem solved. The only other issue you will discover, and I'm one of those people that's not afraid to machine my own parts. These are a 4.1mm landing gear. These are the 5.1. You need the bigger pin. They're intended for a larger retract unit. So I had to machine a pin to fit. So half of it was machined down to fit into the unit. The other half was left its size. I just made flat spots. Your only other option would be to drill out the trunnion to the correct size. These were brand new units. It was easier for me just to machine off 2 pins. But I could say you're only going up 1 drill bit size, and there's plenty of block there in the aluminum where you could drill it out for your strut and not have to machine those. I may do that later, but it doesn't take much to see that that's what it needs to fix. So that's my closeout, guys. This was a test bed aircraft to see if it needed anything else after I did all the mods. I've got to tell you, the 12 blade in-runner fans that I put in here originally have so much thrust. This plane is off the ground in under 100 feet. That's off of rough grass. It's a full flap takeoff, mind you, but it's up. 100 feet, you're off. And I can fly at a 3rd throttle with 5,000 packs. Have a decent flight with it with no issues. I'm coming down at 4 minutes with about 30% in each pack. It's phenomenal. The amount of power to weight you're getting out of those. It's probably pretty close to 1-to-1. So, in closing, I have to say that the Tomcat modifications, if you want to go just one more extra mile, put the struts on it. Make the change in the front, and for those of you grass fielders, maybe you won't run into issues, maybe you will, but now you have an answer to what needs to be done in the event you start to have some of the harder issues that I did. Now, hopefully, that's the end of the mods. I am going to redo this aircraft. I have another airframe. I'm going to clean it up. I may do one final video with the new one, with everything finished, completed, you know, now that I've beaten this one to death and proved it out. And hopefully I can get you guys some flight video and show you how well it performs and how well the gear performs, etc. Thanks for watching. See you again soon, pilots.